Mediators in Qatar say Israel and Hamas are closing in on a ceasefire deal in Gaza. Officials involved in the talks say Hamas has accepted a draft truce agreement that would secure the release of dozens of hostages. Families of the abductees have been waiting in Tel Aviv for news of their loved ones who were captured during the Hamas terror attacks on October 7th of 2023. So far, Israel has not agreed to a deal, but an Israeli official says progress has been made. Now, a ceasefire couldn't come soon enough for the beleaguered people of Gaza, where medics say another 17 people died overnight in Israeli airstrikes.
Gaza, after months of war and repeated rounds of peace talks, hopes are high for a breakthrough. Under the first stage of the reported new plan, set to last 60 days, some 33 hostages would be released. They would include children, women, female soldiers, men over 50 and the wounded and sick. If all goes to plan, 16 days after this, talks would start on a second stage, during which remaining living hostages would be released and the bodies of the dead returned. In return for the hostages, Israel will release more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, including those serving sentences for deadly attacks. Israeli forces would carry out a phased withdrawal, but would remain in a buffer zone around Gaza. Israel says troops would stay in the border perimeter to defend towns and villages in the area. The position of Hamas has been weakened by multiple events, including the death of 2 of its senior leaders and thousands of fighters. Its Lebanon-based allied militia Hezbollah signed a ceasefire deal with Israel, and its backer Iran has also lost influence after rebels in Syria deposed the Iranian-backed leader. On the Israeli side, the killing of the Hamas leadership and its success in demolishing Hamas's forces at the cost of tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians' lives has created the political space for a deal. Some accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of prolonging the war to avoid his own legal troubles and to secure his political survival. But many agree it is the prospect of the imminent Trump presidency that has moved the dial after he threatened there would be hell to pay if hostages are not returned by the time he takes office on January the 20th.
Our Middle East analyst Shani Rozanes has more on the details of the truce plan. Shani, good to see you. Do you expect Israel to accept the plan that's on the table now?
Officially, Israel says we have accepted it. We're waiting for Hamas to comply and make sure that everything is finalized as we expect. We know now there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of hope for the next 24 hours. And what seems to be still in workings is the details of how does the mechanism work technically? Right. Who brings the hostages? Who takes them? Where exactly Israeli army stands, during this ceasefire? Where the withdrawal lines are? These are still left to be finalized. But both sides say this is probably manageable. Nobody talks about the collapse yet. We'll have to see. The next 24 hours are very, very crucial.
What do you make of the timing of it all, especially considering the upcoming changing of the guard in Washington?
That's definitely one of the biggest, clocks ticking above everybody's heads in Doha where the talks are taking place. It's clear that January 20th, the inauguration of Donald Trump, is a very, very stiff deadline. Trump has said very clearly he expects the deal to be at least sealed by then, if not starting to be implemented. And the time is running out. We're talking about Monday. That's 4 days from now. It still seems to be doable if we will hear in the next 24 hours there are agreements, there are final, announcement of this being sealed. It still can happen. A lot of the details of what we're seeing has been in negotiations for many, many months. Basically, this deal is in the same structure that has been proposed already in May of 24. So now it's just about how much did the leverage that Trump's advisors that are there in Doha have managed to put on the sides in order to get them to finally, let the final crunch happen to make it, final.
Is it all Trump's team working to bring this across the line, or is the Biden administration still involved?
Well, the Biden administration is still officially involved, though it seems like the Trump deal is taking the lead. Also, the Biden administration has been saying, this is not ours to deal with. I mean, the way the deal is now structured is that the first phase starts with the release of 3 Israeli hostages and about 120 detainees or prisoners held in Israel, Palestinians. So that will be the first step. But then slowly, gradually, every couple of days, we will see this routine repeats. And on the 16th day, they will start the talks for a longer solution for Gaza, which means release of all the remaining hostages that are still not even discussed and not included in this deal. We're talking about more than 60 people. And of course, what Hamas demands and has been demanding the whole time is bringing an end to the war. And the question is, this has to be done by Trump and his people. And the question would be, how much can they make both sides, who have been very stubborn in making it to that end deal, to that end goal of end to the war, how much will they be able to be effective, more effective at least than the Biden administration has been?
Looking ahead, what do you think his leverage is going to be to see this through?
Well, Trump has been very, strategically vague. He says it's going to be hell. I doubt people living in Gaza will describe their lives already as anything else but hell. The conditions in Gaza are so hard as it is. It's not quite clear what the leverage might be. It could be that what is happening is that in back channels, what Trump is trying to do, because the assumption is that Trump is eyeing a bigger, plan for the Middle East. He wants to have the Saudis come in. That means a longer-term solution for the Palestinians. That's one of the conditions of the Saudis. That would mean that maybe he's willing to make some concessions on the West Bank and sort of help Netanyahu with his extreme right coalition, saying, I will agree to annexation of the West Bank or expansion of settlements, anything of that sort, in return for Israel withdrawing completely from Gaza and starting, the rehabilitation, restructure process there. These are some of the ideas that are floating up in the air. We're not quite sure of what's happening behind closed doors, but maybe this is some of the, the carrots that the Trump administration is bringing with him in order to get this war to an end.
Very briefly, are we closer to putting an end to this war?
Well, it seems like it. It seems for a change, both sides are also agreeing that this is as close as they've ever been. Again, next 24 hours, very tense, very hopeful. Let's see.
Shani, Rozanes, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Nicole.
Cautious optimism, we heard it there, in both Israel and Gaza as negotiators hope to get a deal across the finish line in this critical phase with an end to the fighting. Now inside, DW's Konstantin Eggert went to the kibbutz of Nir Oz near Israel's border with Gaza to meet a former hostage who's still waiting for her son to return after 15 months of captivity. Her husband was killed by Hamas terrorists on October 7th of 2023.
Yelena Trufanova comes to kibbutz Nir Oz every Sunday and Thursday to feed the homeless cats. The weeks go by, but this is a place frozen in time from the day of the Hamas attacks. This job she used to share with her husband, Vitaly.
I and Vitaly took care of all the cats in the kibbutz. Now that Vitaly is no more, it is all mine. The only thing that is left after my husband. You see, everything here burned down.
The family lived in the kibbutz since they emigrated from Russia in 1999. Vitaly worked in an agricultural cooperative and Yelena at the local paint factory. Their son Alexander, or Sasha, grew up here and went on to work for Amazon. He turned 29 last November. Everything changed on the 7th of October 2023 when Hamas attacked the kibbutz. Sasha and his girlfriend Sapir were visiting and were staying in the guest house.
My husband and I were in the secure room here and saw through the window how about 10 people, maybe more, broke down the door in Sasha's house and rushed inside. And I thought that they were killed.
But she did not know for sure. Yelena was captured and kept hostage in Gaza. As it turned out, she was held with her son's girlfriend, Sapir, who insisted that Sasha could still be alive. Surviving as a hostage, Yelena says, depended on personal character.
I saw people who broke down and I saw those who came out of this stronger. For example, Sapir. There she helped everyone. She even took upon herself the responsibility for a 16-year-old girl that was also captured.
Yelena was released in November 2023. She only learned then that her mother was a hostage too and was also freed, and that Hamas killed Vitaly. Yelena does not want to comment on Israel's response after the attacks, like the massive military operation in Gaza.
I have nothing to say about this. I do not think about it. Getting my son back alive and well is the only thing I want.
There is tentative proof that Sasha is still alive. Palestinian militants have released proof of life videos. He's also on the alleged list of hostages they agreed on with the Israeli government during negotiations. Yelena says that when her son is released, she will not hesitate to return to live in the kibbutz and finally do something she's been putting off.
Only then I shall be able to mourn Vitali. I haven't even been to his grave yet. They buried him without us while we were in captivity. I do not want to visit his grave on my own. I shall only do it together with Sasha.
Until then, Yelena feels she has a duty to take care of the cats that have no one to feed them anymore.
Let's bring in our longtime correspondent, Tania Krämer, who joins us from Jerusalem and can put this into perspective for us. Tania, we've had so many prospective deals already. Is there anything this time that makes you think this could actually lead to something?
Well, I think there's a sense here, there's some sort of momentum here building up, and what we can gauge, from the different actors there that are negotiating this deal in Doha. I mean, everybody here is waiting, everything that's being said, usually from officials here, is that there's some sort of political willingness to conclude this, to bring this deal, this agreement together. Also because there's a lot of pressure, we just heard it there in the report. We understand both envoys from the outgoing Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration are working together on that agreement in Doha with the Qataris and the Egyptians to bring this to a conclusion. And there seems to be this willingness from Hamas and from Israel to come together now. This is a very intense waiting period, of course, for the families and relatives of the hostages. They were out in the street also calling for a comprehensive deal. It is a very complicated and very complex agreement that will be played out in phases. So a first phase of 16 days where 33 hostages, as from what we understand right now, will be released, but there will be more hostages that then remain in Gaza, and the families here are saying they should be all released at once. There's also opposition. We also saw people go out in the streets in Israel against this deal, saying this is a surrender to Hamas. And this has been echoed also in Netanyahu's cabinet from his far-right ministers that oppose the deal. But it's unclear if they would actually topple the government over that. And also there's a safety net already from the opposition. They have said they will be willing to join the government for a certain period of time. So what we are seeing right now is a very intense waiting period to see what the mediators in Doha will be able to agree on.
Yeah, and as always, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. The agonizing wait continues for the hostages' relatives. And the 15-month war has killed tens of thousands already. Let's look at what the ceasefire deal would mean for the people of Gaza.
Well, absolutely. And we spoke yesterday to some people there on the phone in Gaza. And there's also the same weight while, the bombardment is continuing there across the Gaza Strip. People are still being killed there and injured every day. And people there told me, they have a cautious optimism. They have been in this situation before, waiting for an agreement to happen, and then it didn't come. Basically, if you look at the number, according to the health officials there, over 46,000 people killed in this conflict. Many families as well, that have lost their loved ones. Gaza doesn't look the same as it was 15 months ago. So what people also want to see in Gaza, that this is not just some cessation of hostilities, not just some temporary ceasefire, but they want to see something more permanent so that they can pick up and rebuild their lives in Gaza.
A long road ahead. That was DW's Tania Krämer in Jerusalem. Always great to get your insights. Thank you so much.